work on 3-2, and you're going to notice we're using parallel lines and transversals. Now you're going to notice it says get a ruler and a protractor. You don't need to because I already drew the pictures. So really what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this picture right here. We're going to talk a little bit about what we've seen before. So if you remember from the last lesson, these two lines are sometimes parallel and they're sometimes not. If they're parallel, what symbol do we look for it to tell you that they're parallel? They're two little like arrow thingies. So when you see that, that means that they're parallel. If you don't see that, you can't assume. And then we said this had a special name, this line. What was the name of this? It's a transversal, that's right. And they cut two of the other lines. Again, those two lines can be parallel, sometimes they're not. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these angles and I'm going to name them with numbers. And we're going to start looking at them. So if you remember from the last time that we met, we looked at interior angles. So if you remember, if I have this line is like the top part of the sandwich, this line is like the bottom part of the sandwich. If I talked about interior angles, I start with angle 3 and then go to angle 4 and then angle 5 and then angle 6. And those are interior angles. Okay. Exterior angles would be 1, 2, 7, and 8. Okay. So let's look at the interior angles first. And I'm going to start down here where it says alternate interior angles. So if I'm going to label the alternate interior angles, again, I'm looking at the inner ones. And I'm going to pick angle 3. What would be the one that's alternate interior to that? Angle 6. Remember, they kind of form an X. So angle 3 and angle 6, and then angle 4 and angle 5. That's right. They're alternate interior. Now I'm going to look at the other interior angles. They're called the consecutive interior angles. What was another name for that in here? This is the same side. We called them like our roommates, right? They are on the same side. So if I go angle 3, what would be the other consecutive interior? Angle 3 and angle 5, right? If you remember, we talked about 3 and 5 are inside the same room. And so those are the consecutive interiors. So angle 3 and angle 5, angle 5, and then angle 4 and angle 6. That's right. Okay. Now let's go to alternate exterior. So again, we talked about the exterior being 1, 2, 7, and 8. So if I pick angle 1, you pick angle 8. That's right. And then if I pick angle 2, you pick angle 7. Right. Any questions on that? All right, now corresponding. If you remember corresponding, they were kind of like the directions. If I do angle 1, you would do angle 5. That's right, because angle 1 is like the upper left and 5 is upper left. Okay, I say angle 2, you say angle 6. Upper right, upper right. I say angle 3 and you say angle 7. That's right. And then I say angle 4 and you say angle 8. That's right. And they kind of form that crisscross. Okay? Now, let's look at a little bit of the relationships that are going on with these angles. If I take a look at the alternate interior angles, like angle 3 and angle 6 and angle 4 and angle 5, I can't prove it. But if I were to look closely at these right now, how are they related to each other? Yeah.
They share those two same lines.
That's correct, they do. But in relationship to like their measure, if I take a look at angle 3 and angle 6, they look like they are the same, right? They look like they're congruent, and that is true. If I have parallel lines, alternate interior angles, they're congruent. Let's look at alternate exterior. So again, look at 1 and look at 8. How do they look in comparison? They look the same or they look congruent. So alternate exterior angles are also congruent if I have parallel lines. What about corresponding angles like angle 1 and angle 5? How do they look? They look the same. So corresponding angles are also congruent if I have parallel lines. Now, my last question. Consecutive interior angles, my roommates, like 3 and 5, do these look congruent? They do not. So what's their relationship, do you think? Yeah.
Supplementary?
They are supplementary. Very good. They add up to 180 degrees. So these are supplementary. And if you take a close look at those relationships, you can see why they're supplementary using alternate interior angles. Okay, so now let's go a little bit further and let's talk a little bit about this. So when you do proofs, you have the statement side and then you have the reason side. Anytime you do the proof, you have to list if parallel lines, then corresponding angles are congruent. You can't just say corresponding angles are congruent because you have to have parallel lines first. If parallel lines, then alternate interior angles are congruent. If parallel lines, then consecutive interior angles are supplementary. And if parallel lines, then alternate exterior angles are congruent. Okay? We're going to be using them in proofs. So anytime you use these, you need to make sure you establish that you have parallel lines first. Questions? Okay, let's move on. In this problem, they tell me that line L and line M are parallel. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that symbol in there because they're parallel. And it's asking me to find the value of X. So what am I going to do to try to find the value of X? What I find, yeah, go ahead. Okay, it looks like they would be equal, and that's a really good guess. Okay, they're not equal. They're not, but they are something else, so just hang on to that. Yes. That's correct. So 3x minus 18 plus 105 equals 180 degrees. Now, what makes this confusing is this right here. Do we need it? We don't need it. So they gave us some information we don't. So what I would do if I were you, and I am not, but if I were you and I were solving this and I didn't need it, I would actually take it off my picture. Now you can see how much easier the problem becomes. Now you've got your two parallel lines and you got your transversal. So that's something I encourage you when you work on these problems on your iPad, you can actually white some of that stuff out. Another thing that you can do is take a piece of paper over the top of some of these and redraw it so that you can take pieces out of the picture to make it a little bit easier. Now what you're going to find is that this angle right here is congruent to this angle right here. Why? What are they? What type of angles? Yes.
Alternate exterior?
Not alternate exterior. Because if I use, this is my parallel line and this is my parallel line, one of them is on the outside and one of them is inside. Yes. They're corresponding angles. That's correct. Okay. Yeah, so they're corresponding angles. So this is 105. And then I know the other two are linear pair. So let's go ahead then and bring our stuff together. 3x plus what? 3 plus what? 105 minus 18 is 70? 87? Okay, and then we subtract, so 3x gives me 93. Divide by 3, x gives me 31, so 31 degrees. And then check and see, did I answer the question? Did I find the value of x? I did. Sometimes in these problems, and I can't on my smart board or on my board, turn your paper so that you have the two parallel lines that are go from left to right and the transversal cuts it. So literally turn your paper and that will help you solve the problem too. Okay. Questions? Okay, let's do a few more. So let's take a look at this one. Again, I've got parallel lines. And so if you need to, you can extend these parallel lines. And if you wanted to, you could even take, you know, the white out and like white out a part of it. So like I can white out this. And then here I have a transversal. See how I did that? Sometimes doing that can really help you solve some of these problems. You do what you think you need to, okay? So let's take a look at this then. How are 2z and 3z related on this problem? What do you think? Yeah? They are. And so what do I do with them if they're consecutive interior? What do we do with them? Do we set them equal to each other? They're supplementary, right? Yeah, so 3z plus 2z equals 180, 5z equals 180, and z gives me 36. We okay? Not okay? Questions? Okay. Let's move on. I've got another side that acts like a transversal. Okay, so how do we go about this? What are we going to do to solve it? Yeah.
134 plus 2x equals 180.
Yes, and why is that?
Because they're supplementary.
Correct, they are supplementary. Why?
Because they're consecutive.
That's right, they're consecutive interior. So 2x equals 46. X gives me 23 degrees. So once you see those relationships, things will start making more sense. Again, if I were you, I would take these, I'd extend those parallel lines a little bit longer. I'd extend that transversal a little bit longer. If you have to take another sheet of paper and put that over the top and trace it, then that's what I would do. Okay. Questions on this? All right, let's move on. Here's the next one. Again, I've got those little yellow triangles, which mean what? Got parallel lines. So I've got my parallel lines here, and I've got several transversals. How many transversals do I have? How many? Yeah,
3.
I have 3 transversals. That's right. One of the transversals is here, one of them is here, and one of them is here. So it kind of depends on what transversal you're looking at and what angles you're looking at. Okay, so we're going to solve these. How do I set it up? What do you want to do? Yes.
4x plus 3z plus 2 equals 90.
It does. Very good. So he's saying that I can take 4x plus 3z plus 2, and that's going to equal to 90. And it's the same type of roommate thing. So if I look at this right here, okay, this angle right here is 90, then that would make this 90 degrees because together it equals 180 degrees. So that's one way of looking at it. Now, if I wanted to solve for this, I could. So I can subtract 2. How do I solve for x and z? I can't, can I? I got too many variables. So there's one more piece to this problem that I need to take care of before I finish this part. Okay, so what part are we missing here? Yeah.
3z plus 2 equals 52.
So you're saying that this equals this.
I think so.
You're close. You're really close. Rather than 3z plus 2 equaling 52, I'm going to make 4x equaling 52. What is the relationship between 4x and 52? What type of angles are they? I got parallel lines. I've got a transversal. Here's my transversal. How are 4x and 52 related? Yeah, they're alternate interior. Yep. So 4x equals 52. Divide by 4. X gives me 13. So x is 13 degrees. Now that I know that x is 13 degrees, I can take it and put it in here. Oh. Pardon? Ah, thank you. This is 88. Thank you. There we go. So then I end up with 36. And z gives me 12. So you have 12 degrees. Questions on this? So it's really making sure that you can see alternate interior angles, consecutive interior angles. Once you can make those relationships, the rest of it gets easier. Okay, let's look at the last one. This one looks harder, but it's actually easier once you realize some relationships. So again, I've got my parallel lines. Here's one, here's the other. What are some of the relationships I can pull out? Z equals 85. You're right. I've got my parallel line, right? And then I've got my transversals. Notice that Z is hugged by the purple and the pink line, and 85 is hugged by the purple and the pink line. What type of angles are they? Alternate interior? Alternate exterior? Corresponding? Corresponding. That's right. All right. We're done with that one. Now, how do we go about x? How are we going to find that? Yes.
X equals 45.
Very good. X equals 45. So if I take a look at this again, I got my parallel lines. I'm going to draw in my transversal. Notice that X is hugged by the purple and pink line, and 45 is hugged by the purple and pink line. Okay? And then I know that they're alternate interior angles. Questions? Okay. Now, my advice to you is this. Some of you are really labored with alternate interior, alternate exterior. There is a quiz in Schoology. Everyone needs to get 100% to be able to take this test. Most students not only take it once, but they take it on a daily basis, even though they get 100% as practice. You can also use a Quizlet. I'm going to get out some paper flashcards for some of you because some of you might want that. But I really encourage you to practice alternate interior, alternate exterior, and those angles.